I would like to inform everybody that the hour of joy happens to just don't die.
Oh, great. You found me. Alright, let's talk about the funny game. Poppy Playtime is an indie mascot horror game that released in December 2021. The team behind it, Mob Games, had emailed Steam keys to large YouTubers in the hope that they would play it, and it definitely worked. So the way I'm probably going to do this is I'm going to talk about the chapter with some gameplay of it in the background, so just chill and watch, I guess. Chapter 1 is what I would consider a perfect introduction to the series. Its horror hits all the right beats, and of course, the unforgettable Huggy chase, where he gets a couple of boo-boos in the end. Of course, since this is an introduction chapter, it doesn't hit all the lore marks, but we do get a few VHS tapes, which one of them gives us our first look at the prototype in the form of its hand.
Final log. In relation. Experiment 1006. The prototype. Coordination and cooperation is evidently within his skill set, as well as the skill set of all other experiments of his type. Though still missing, today's events are no doubt in relation to him. His absence was a flaw in the scientific process, which should have under no circumstances been left unaccounted for. That's why I'm making this log, so that the same mistake won't be made twice. Any future experiments will need to be contained and disposed of in a secure location. I'm not worried about myself. One breakthrough and I'll be back. We must forge onwards in the name of science, whether those who are beneath us understand it or not. End of...
In this undoubtedly haunting tape, a scientist who works at Playtime Co. makes an effort to have his few last words during the infamous Hour of Joy, which we find out about in Chapter 3. This tape is really important to the story because it gives us some reveals about how the toys here might not be made like we think they are. Another key point of this chapter is our main villain, Huggy. Huggy Wuggy is one of Playtime Co.'s toys, which are real experiments disguised as toys, and it serves the purpose of being security for Playtime. Obviously, he would be a good candidate for this role since he has sharp teeth, tall stature, and is really fast. I also want to praise how well executed the chase is. Sure, it becomes predictable after a few playthroughs, but any other chase would. Unfortunately, the chases don't get much better onward, but at least we have this one to think about. Oh, hey there. Seems you got the blue guy for me. Anyway, I think we should move on to Chapter 2 now. As the second entry in the series, Chapter 2 is probably my favourite chapter in the franchise. Also, this chapter takes about an hour to beat since the first chapter was more of an introduction, which is why it's so short. In my opinion, Poppy Playtime Chapter 2 capitalises the vibe and setting of the series perfectly. This chapter adds just enough more content to feel fresh, and I think the game station is a really cool hub world. But I just have one problem with this chapter. The controls.
What does that mean?
There seems to be a dead zone when the camera doesn't move, and it gets really tedious for grabbing onto things. One thing I can praise though is the mini games you play throughout. The ones that stand out to me are Musical Memory and Whack a Wuggy. They don't feel like filler at any point and are pretty fun to play all things considered. But one gripe I have is the monologues Mummy gives before the games start. You can't skip them, plus they're just long. I like the Whack a Wuggy one though, short and sweet.
The toys in this game used to have strings attached to them, so they could be pulled back when they got too close to the children. Have fun.
But I think the one thing perfectly executed in this chapter has to be Mommy Longlegs' death scene.
What have you done? You make me part of him! You can't do this to me!
I could confidently say this is probably one of the best deaths in the franchise. First of all, because she just screams in pain and also trying to convince us that she's good, even though she definitely isn't. And second, the short scene where we see the prototype drag her away. Okay, now let's debrief onto Mummy Longlegs' design. First of all, I'd like to say it's probably one of the weaker villain designs in the franchise, but there's still some pros, being her long legs and eerie eyes. Alright, now let's get on to some of my favourite audio logs from this chapter. A standout log for me has to be where a funny Irishman is seemingly interrogated by Leaf Pierre.
Mind if I film this?
Oh, not at all, sir.
That's what I like to hear. So, Marcus, what happened?
You see, I was heading home for the day when my apars realised that I left me bloody wallet in the cafeteria. So I'm running through the lobby, and that's when I see it. A mop handle lodged under the innovation wing gate.
So what'd you do, Marcus?
Well, I just thought I'd nab the bloody yoke and be on me merry way.
And?
Well, I'm reaching for the thing, and the mop handle jolts on its own. Had me scared stiff. I thought I was the only one there. So I took a peek beneath the gate, and some massive bloody thing was doddering about the bloody hallway.
Thing? You're sure it wasn't a person?
Ain't no person that's 50 feet long with 1,000 legs.
Marcus, you're losing me. Maybe you just saw a bunch of people walking by.
Look, it wasn't people, alright? I haven't a bloody notion what it was, but it wasn't human.
Who have you told about this? Besides me, obviously.
Just you, sir. Obviously.
Okay. I'll have security skim the cameras and take a look.
What? There's a massive bloody monster! Skimming ain't gonna get rid of it!
You're out of line, Marcus. We make toys, not monsters. Now come on, get out of my sight. Actually, grab me a coffee, will you? Actually, never mind. Get out of my sight.
This tape shows a recording of Jacksepticeye reporting a mysterious finding in the factory, which we know is PJ Pugapilla. Obviously, Leaf Pierre is pretending to not buy any of this, since he's basically the orchestrator of the entire operation. And finally, let's now move on to our little prototype lore dump we get at the end of the game after we kill Mummy.
Log code 08502. In relation, Experiment 1006. The prototype. A close call occurred this week in which he nearly breached containment. The prototype seemingly disassembled the digital alarm clock within his room and utilized the battery, along with several other components, to create a laser pointer, which he then fired into the security camera, disabling it. These actions allowed him 28.3 seconds completely unmonitored. Once function returned to the camera, the room appeared to be empty. One surveillance specialist went in to confirm his absence. However, upon opening the door, she realized that the prototype had hidden in one of the camera's blind spots. The prototype attempted to escape through the open door. However, another surveillance specialist was able to remotely relock the door, despite the other specialists still being inside. One casualty occurred. The prototype seems to possess an unprecedented level of intelligence, beyond that of all other test subjects, as well as an alarming willingness to commit violence. Further suppression treatments will need to be enacted to ensure that no other experiments develop these qualities. Experiment 1170, Huggy Wuggy, remains the optimal outcome due to his sufficient intelligence paired with maximum obedience. End of log.
So in this audio log, we can presume that the same scientist we heard in Chapter 1 during the Hour of Joy talks about the prototype's actions and behaviour. He talks about its intelligence and tactical thinking that Playtime Co. doesn't want the other toys to adopt. It's reported that the prototype killed the surveillance guard inspecting the area, again showing the prototype is willing to do anything to escape. I thought I lost you. Jeez. Thanks for catching this pink spider thing. I would never hurt you. Anyway, we should finish things off with Chapter 3. Okay, let's get something out of the way. This is the best chapter in the series. I've always looked at Poppy Playtime differently to normal games, because from a standpoint, most of the games are bad. This one actually has that actual game feel. Like I said before, this is by far the best chapter in the franchise, But that status comes down to one thing about the game: the tension. Home Sweet Home is a perfect example of this. First of all, the fact that they take away your only form of protection you have, the grab pack. And also in this section, you're on like Catnap's scarecrow fear toxin thing. It accumulates to an almost perfect section of the game, which is reminiscent of other games. I also think this is one of the most well-structured chapters when it comes to pacing and storytelling. Each section gets a fair amount of time, and even though there are a few chases in the game, which definitely becomes a fatigue later on in the series, I still think they're well executed and don't feel rushed or unnecessary. Okay, now let's get onto the big bad of this chapter, Catnap. His design looks phenomenal, and I feel it looks pretty eerie. I also appreciate the fact that he's skinny, showing he's been struggling to survive, and the fact he worships the prototype, who basically does not care about him at all, and is the reason to his demise in the end of the game. Another one of my favourite moments from the game is the Hour of Joy tape we see after killing Catnap. It shows how much of a grasp the prototype had on the toys' minds and how it manipulated them into doing it. Well, you know what time it is, prototype tape time. We find this tape right before the final Catnap fight at the end of the game.
Log code 24459. In relation, experiment 1006. The prototype. Stubborn as he is, and always silent with each passing session, I'm still uncovering fresh data nonetheless. Today's discovery... End of log.
Ready to talk now, are you? I possess
A question.
Go ahead.
Do you feel anything?
This question referred to what exactly?
You stick us,
Beat us.
tear at flesh.
Do you feel it? There's a secret inside you, 1006. Valuable beyond all measure. I cut and prod and burn at it, and I get closer with each session. So speak, or don't. Fight, or give in. Regardless, I learn something new about you every day. It excites me. Thank you. You thank me? Absolutely. I learn something new about you every day.
So this is probably one of the biggest prototype reveals we get before chapter 4 and 5. We hear a scientist talking about the prototype and ending the log, but then we hear the scientist having a conversation with the prototype about how they torture him, and it shows just how cruel Playtime Co. was to its toys. Thank God! Finally done. Now we can escape. What was that? Oh, okay. Just hide! Okay, status report. There was this thing, the thing disappeared. It came back. Please, I need help, please. I can't do this. Just, no.